Welcome to Toxic from Reddit, where real toxic relationship stories come to life. Here you'll hear true stories from people who experience toxic relationships from different perspectives. Partners dealing with cheating, manipulation, gaslighting, red flags, and all the emotional chaos that comes with loving someone who hurts you. Stories of betrayal, of finding strength to leave, of discovering the truth, of heartbreak, of healing, and the raw reality of toxic love. This is a real story, shared anonymously on Reddit. Some details have been changed to protect the identity of the people involved. Hi everyone, my name is Sarah, I'm 28 years old and I live in Seattle, and I need to tell you about the most embarrassing and painful moment of my entire life, which happened 3 weeks ago when my boyfriend of 4 years, Jake, proposed to me in front of my entire family at my parents' anniversary party, and I said no, right there in front of everyone. Because 3 months before that, he cheated on me with his coworker. And even though he begged me to forgive him and promised it would never happen again, I just couldn't say yes to marrying someone who broke my trust like that. And now everyone in my family thinks I'm the bad guy for embarrassing him, but they don't know the whole story. And I don't know if I should tell them or just let them think I'm horrible. I'm going to tell you everything from the beginning so you understand why I did what I did. Jake and I met 4 years ago through mutual friends at a birthday party. And honestly, it was like something out of a movie. We talked all night, we had so much in common, he was funny and sweet and attentive, and by the end of the night, we exchanged numbers and he texted me the very next day asking me out on a proper date, which I thought was really nice because most guys these days just send you a message on social media and call it a date. Our first date was amazing. He took me to this little Italian restaurant downtown, and we talked for hours. Like we closed down the restaurant because we were the last ones there. And I remember thinking, this is it. This is the guy I've been waiting for. Because every guy I dated before him was either boring or selfish or just not interested in anything serious. But Jake seemed different. He seemed like he really wanted to get to know me, like he cared about what I had to say. And that felt really special. The first year of our relationship was honestly perfect. I know everyone says that, but it really was. We spent every weekend together. He would surprise me with little gifts and notes. He remembered every little thing I told him, like my favorite coffee order or the name of my childhood dog, and he got along great with my friends. And my family loved him from the start, like they really loved him. My mom would always say things like, "Sarah, you better not let this one go." And my dad, who is usually pretty quiet and doesn't show emotion much, would actually laugh at Jake's jokes and invite him to watch football games, which was a big deal because my dad never really liked any of my previous boyfriends. Like he was always polite, but you could tell he wasn't impressed. My little sister Emma, who was 19 at the time, thought Jake was the coolest and would always ask him for advice about college and boys. And my older brother Mike would invite Jake to play basketball with his friends. So Jake really became part of the family, which made everything that happened later so much more complicated and painful. After about a year and a half, Jake and I moved in together. We found this cute apartment in Capitol Hill. It wasn't huge, but it was ours. And I was so excited to start this new chapter with him. Like I really thought this was the person I was going to spend my life with. Living together was an adjustment like it is for everyone. We had to figure out how to split chores and bills and deal with each other's annoying habits, like he would leave his dirty dishes in the sink and I would take forever in the bathroom getting ready. But overall, it was really good. We fell into a comfortable routine. We would cook dinner together most nights and watch TV on the couch and talk about our days. And I felt so lucky to have found someone I could build a life with. Someone who felt like home. Around the 2-year mark, Jake started a new job at a tech company downtown. It was a big step up for him career-wise, and he was really excited about it. And I was excited for him too. I knew he had been working really hard and he deserved the opportunity, and I wanted to be supportive. The job was demanding though. He started working longer hours, and sometimes he would have to go into the office on weekends, and he would come home exhausted and stressed. And I could see it was taking a toll on him. But I tried to be supportive. I would make him dinner and give him space when he needed it and listen when he wanted to vent about work. Because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You support them through the hard times. He talked a lot about his coworkers. There was this whole team of people he worked with closely, and he would tell me stories about them, about the projects they were working on, about the office drama. And I liked hearing about his day even if I didn't always understand all the technical stuff he was talking about. Like I work in marketing, so I don't really know anything about coding or software development. One name that came up a lot was Emily. She was on his team, and apparently she was really good at her job. And Jake would mention her pretty often. Like Emily had this great idea in the meeting today, or Emily and I stayed late to finish the presentation. And at first I didn't think anything of it. I mean, it's normal to have coworkers you work closely with and talk about. And I trusted Jake completely. I had no reason not to. He had never given me any reason to doubt him. But after a few months, I started to notice that he was mentioning Emily more and more. And sometimes he would be texting on his phone and smiling. And when I asked who it was, he would say, "Oh, just Emily sending a funny meme about work." And I started to feel this little uncomfortable feeling in my stomach. Not quite jealousy, but just this sense that something was off. Like my intuition was trying to tell me something, but I didn't want to listen. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just insecure because Jake was working so much and we weren't spending as much quality time together as we used to. And I didn't want to be that girlfriend who gets jealous of her boyfriend's female coworkers, because I've always prided myself on being secure and trusting, and I didn't want to turn into some crazy jealous person over nothing. So I pushed the feeling down and tried not to think about it, but it kept nagging at me. Then one night, about 6 months into his new job, Jake came home really late. It was almost midnight, and he said he had been out for drinks with some people from work. And when he walked in, I could smell perfume on him, like women's perfume, and my heart just dropped, like I felt it physically drop in my chest. I asked him about it, and he laughed and said, "Oh yeah, Emily was there, and she hugged me goodbye. You know how she is. She's a hugger." And he said it so casually, like it was no big deal. And I wanted to believe him. I really did. So I just said okay, and we went to bed. But I felt sick. But I couldn't sleep that night. I just lay there next to him, staring at the ceiling with this sick feeling in my stomach. And I started thinking about all the times he had mentioned Emily, all the late nights at work, all the times he was on his phone smiling, and I started to wonder if I was missing something obvious, if everyone else could see what was happening except me. The next morning, I felt crazy for even thinking it. Jake had never given me a real reason not to trust him. He had always been loyal and honest as far as I knew, and I didn't want to ruin our relationship by being paranoid and accusatory. So I decided to just let it go and trust him. Because what else could I do? I couldn't just accuse him of cheating based on a feeling. Things continued like that for a while. Jake working long hours, me trying not to worry, us seeing each other less and less. And I could feel us drifting apart, but I didn't know how to fix it. Like I didn't know if it was just a phase because of his job or if it was something deeper. I tried to plan date nights and suggest things we could do together on weekends, but he was always tired or had work to catch up on, and I started to feel really lonely even though I was living with him, which is a terrible feeling, to feel alone when you're with someone. I talked to my best friend Rachel about it, and she said maybe I should just ask him directly if something was going on, but I was too scared. I didn't want to hear an answer I didn't like, so I just kept hoping things would get better on their own, which I know now was stupid. Then one night, about 3 months ago now, everything fell apart. It was a Friday night, and Jake had said he was going out for drinks with coworkers again, and I was home alone watching Netflix. And around 10 p.m., I got a message on Instagram from someone I didn't know. The username was something random like throwaway 847362, and the message said, "I think you should know that your boyfriend is cheating on you with Emily from his work. I saw them together tonight at a bar, and they were definitely more than friends. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but I would want to know if I were you." My hands were shaking as I read it. I felt like I was going to throw up, and I didn't know if I should believe this random person or if it was just someone trying to start drama. But deep down, I knew it was true. I had known something was wrong for months, and I had just been too scared to face it. I tried calling Jake, but he didn't answer. I called 3 times, and it went to voicemail each time. And then I started texting him, asking where he was and who he was with. And he didn't respond for almost an hour, which felt like forever. And when he finally did, he just said, "I'm out with work people. I'll be home soon. Is everything okay?" And I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to accuse him over text. So I just said, "We need to talk when you get home." And he said, "Okay, I'll be there in 30 minutes. Those 30 minutes felt like the longest of my life. I paced around the apartment trying to figure out what I was going to say, how I was going to ask him, and I was crying and shaking, and I felt like my whole world was falling apart, like everything I thought I knew was a lie. When Jake finally got home, he could tell immediately that something was wrong. I was sitting on the couch with tears streaming down my face, and he rushed over and asked what happened, and I just showed him the Instagram message. I didn't even say anything. I just held up my phone. His face went completely white, and he sat down next to me and put his head in his hands. And I said, "Is it true? Are you cheating on me with Emily?" And there was this long, horrible silence, like the worst silence of my entire life. And then he said, "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. It only happened once. I swear it only happened once, and it meant nothing." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach, even though part of me had known it was true. Hearing him actually admit it was devastating. Like I couldn't breathe. And I started sobbing, like ugly crying. And I asked him when it happened, and he said it was 2 weeks ago. They had stayed late at work, and everyone else had left, and they were talking, and one thing led to another, and they kissed. And then it went further, and he said he regretted it immediately, and he had been feeling horrible about it ever since, but he didn't know how to tell me. I asked him if he had feelings for her, and he said no. He said it was just a physical thing, a stupid mistake, that he loved me and only me, and he would do anything to make it right. But how was I supposed to believe that? How was I supposed to believe anything he said after he had been lying to me? I asked him if anyone else knew, and he said no, just him and Emily. And they had agreed it was a mistake, and they were going to pretend it never happened and just be professional at work, which made me feel even worse because it meant they had talked about it. They had made a plan together. I asked him who sent me the Instagram message, and he said he didn't know. Maybe someone from work saw them at the bar that night. He wasn't sure. And I wondered if there were other people who knew. If everyone at his office knew he was cheating on me and I was the only one who didn't. I didn't know what to do. I was so angry and hurt and betrayed, but I also still loved him, and we had built a whole life together. And the thought of throwing it all away was terrifying. Like I couldn't imagine my life without him, even though he had just broken my heart. So I told him I needed time to think, and I went to stay at Rachel's apartment for the weekend. I just packed a bag and left. And he didn't try to stop me. He just sat there on the couch looking destroyed. I spent the whole weekend crying and talking to Rachel and trying to figure out what to do. And Rachel was amazing. She didn't tell me what to do. She just listened and brought me ice cream and let me cry on her couch. And she told me that whatever I decided, she would support me. Part of me wanted to just end it right there. To pack up my stuff and move out and never see Jake again. Because how could I ever trust him after this? But another part of me kept thinking about all the good times we had. All the years we spent together. All the plans we made for the future. And I wondered if maybe we could get past this. If maybe it really was just a one-time mistake and we could work through it. I know a lot of people would say I was being stupid. That once a cheater, always a cheater. But when you love someone, it's not that simple. You can't just turn off your feelings. And I wanted to believe that our relationship was worth fighting for. After the weekend, I went back to the apartment and Jake and I had a long talk. And he promised me over and over that it would never happen again. That he would do whatever it took to earn back my trust. That he would go to couples therapy with me. That he would quit his job if I wanted him to. Anything. I told him I didn't want him to quit his job, but I did want him to set boundaries with Emily. And he said he already had. He said he told Emily that what happened was a mistake, and it couldn't happen again, and they needed to keep things strictly professional, which again made me feel sick thinking about them having that conversation. I asked if I could see his phone, and he handed it over immediately, and I went through his messages with Emily, and there was nothing inappropriate, just work stuff, so that made me feel a little better, but I also knew he could have deleted things. We decided to try to work through it. I told him it was going to take time for me to trust him again, and he said he understood, and we agreed to start going to couples therapy. The next few months were really hard. I was trying to forgive him, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time he was late coming home from work, I would wonder if he was with her. Every time he was on his phone, I would wonder who he was texting. And I hated feeling that way. I hated being suspicious and paranoid all the time. It was exhausting. We went to therapy every week, and it helped a little. The therapist gave us tools to communicate better and work through trust issues. But I still felt like there was this wall between us that hadn't been there before. Like we were going through the motions, but something fundamental had changed. Jake was trying really hard. He was being extra attentive and sweet. He would text me throughout the day to let me know what he was doing. He would come home right after work instead of staying late. He stopped mentioning Emily completely, and I could tell he was genuinely sorry and wanted to make things work. But I just didn't know if I could get past what he did, if I could ever really trust him again. Then 3 weeks ago, my parents had their 30th wedding anniversary party. It was this big celebration at a nice restaurant with all of our family and close friends, probably about 50 people total, and Jake and I went together. I had been feeling a little better about our relationship lately. We had been getting along well, and I was starting to feel like maybe we could actually move past the cheating. Like maybe with enough time in therapy, we could rebuild what we had, and I was trying to focus on the positive and not dwell on the past. The party was really nice. Everyone was having a good time. My parents were so happy, and at one point, my dad gave this sweet speech about how lucky he was to have spent 30 years with my mom, and how marriage is hard work, but it's worth it, and everyone was clapping and smiling. And I looked over at Jake, and he was looking at me with this intense expression that I couldn't quite read, and I remember thinking, that's weird, but I didn't think too much about it. Then suddenly, right after my dad's speech, Jake stood up and tapped his glass to get everyone's attention, and my heart started racing because I had no idea what he was doing, and he started talking about how inspired he was by my parents' love story. and how he had found that same kind of love with me. And then before I could process what was happening, he got down on one knee and pulled out a ring and asked me to marry him, right there in front of everyone. The whole room went silent, and everyone was staring at us. And I could see my mom with her hands over her mouth looking so excited. And my sister was filming on her phone, and everyone was waiting for me to say yes. And I just froze. Like my whole body froze, and my mind went blank. All I could think about in that moment was him with Emily, him lying to me for 2 weeks before I found out, him breaking my trust. And I realized that I hadn't actually forgiven him. I had just been trying to convince myself that I had because I didn't want to lose him. But standing there with everyone watching, I knew I couldn't marry him. I couldn't commit my life to someone who had betrayed me like that, no matter how much I loved him. So I said, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. And I could hear people gasping, and my mom said, Sarah, what are you doing? And Jake's face just crumpled. He looked completely devastated, and I felt horrible, but I couldn't take it back. So I just grabbed my purse and walked out of the restaurant, and I could feel everyone staring at me as I left. I sat in my car in the parking lot crying for probably 20 minutes before Rachel came out to check on me. She had been at the party too, and she got in the car and hugged me and asked if I was okay. And I told her I didn't know. I didn't know if I did the right thing or if I just made the biggest mistake of my life. She drove me back to her place, and I stayed there that night because I couldn't face going back to the apartment and seeing Jake. I just couldn't deal with it. My phone was blowing up with calls and texts from my family asking what happened, why I said no, if Jake and I were okay. And I didn't know how to explain it without telling them about the cheating. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to tell them because I knew it would change how they saw Jake. And I didn't want to ruin his relationship with my family even though he had ruined our relationship. The next day, my mom called me and she was upset. She said I embarrassed Jake in front of everyone, and I embarrassed the family. And I needed to apologize to him and explain what was going on. And I tried to tell her that it was more complicated than that, but she wasn't really listening. I told her that Jake and I had been having problems, and I just wasn't ready to get married. And she said that's not an excuse for humiliating him like that. I should have just said yes and then talked to him privately later if I had concerns. And I tried to explain that I couldn't say yes to something I didn't mean, that it wouldn't be fair to either of us, but she wasn't really listening. She just kept saying I handled it wrong and I needed to fix it. My sister called me too, and she was a little more understanding. She asked if Jake had done something to hurt me, and I almost told her about the cheating, but I stopped myself. I just said we had some trust issues we were working through, and the proposal caught me off guard. Jake texted me a few times asking if we could talk, saying he was sorry for putting me on the spot like that. He thought I would be happy, and he wanted to show me how committed he was to our relationship, and he didn't mean to make things worse, and I could tell from his messages that he was really upset. I finally agreed to meet him at a coffee shop a few days later, and when I saw him, he looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. And I felt so guilty even though I knew I didn't do anything wrong. Like I felt guilty for hurting him, even though he was the one who hurt me first. We sat down and he asked me why I said no. If it was because of what happened with Emily and I said yes, that was a big part of it. I told him I had been trying to forgive him, but I realized I was just going through the motions because I didn't want to lose what we had, but I couldn't marry someone I didn't fully trust. He started crying and said he understood. He said he knew he messed up and he didn't blame me for not being able to forgive him. And he asked if there was any chance we could keep trying, keep going to therapy, and maybe eventually I would be able to trust him again. And I could see how much pain he was in, and it broke my heart. I told him I didn't know. I needed time to figure out what I wanted, and he said he would give me all the time I needed. He would wait for me, and we left the coffee shop without really resolving anything, and I still don't know what I'm going to do. Part of me wants to give him another chance because I do still love him, and I miss what we had. But another part of me knows that the trust is broken, and it might never come back. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if he's being faithful or looking through his phone or feeling anxious every time he's late coming home, because that's no way to live. My family is still upset with me. My mom barely talks to me now, and when she does, she makes little comments about how I ruined my parents' anniversary party and how Jake was such a good guy, and I let him go. And it hurts because she doesn't know the whole story, but I still don't want to tell her because I know it will just create more drama. My dad hasn't said much, but I can tell he's disappointed in me. And my brother actually called me and said I was being dramatic and I should just forgive Jake and move on because everyone makes mistakes. And that made me so angry because it's easy to say that when it's not your relationship and you're not the one who got cheated on. Only Rachel and my sister Emma have been supportive. Emma actually told me she's proud of me for standing up for myself and not just saying yes because everyone expected me to, and that meant a lot. Like it really meant a lot to have someone in my family on my side. I've been staying at Rachel's apartment for the past 3 weeks, I haven't gone back to my apartment with Jake because I don't know what to say to him, and I'm not ready to make any big decisions about our relationship. And Rachel has been amazing letting me stay here even though I know I'm probably overstaying my welcome. I've been thinking a lot about what I want, about whether I can really forgive him and move forward, or if I'm just holding on to something that's already broken. And I honestly don't know the answer. Like, I wish someone could just tell me what to do, but I know that's not how it works. I love Jake. I really do. And the thought of losing him forever makes me feel sick. But I also know that I deserve to be with someone I can trust completely. Someone who won't betray me. And I don't know if Jake can be that person anymore. Like, I don't know if we can ever get back to where we were before. Some of my friends have told me I should just end it. That if he cheated once, he'll cheat again, and I should cut my losses and move on while I'm still young. But it's not that easy when you've built a life with someone, when you've shared 4 years together, when you've met each other's families and made plans for the future. Like, you can't just throw all that away without it hurting. Other friends have said that everyone makes mistakes, and if he's genuinely sorry and willing to work on the relationship, then maybe it's worth trying to forgive him. And I go back and forth between these two perspectives every day. Like, one day I think I should give him another chance, and the next day I think I should just end it and move on. I also keep thinking about the proposal, about how he did it in front of everyone without talking to me first about where we stood. And part of me is angry about that, because it felt like he was trying to pressure me into saying yes by doing it publicly. Like, he thought I wouldn't be able to say no in front of my whole family, which feels manipulative even if that wasn't his intention. But another part of me thinks maybe he genuinely thought we were in a good place and he wanted to make a grand romantic gesture. And he didn't realize I was still struggling with what happened. Like, maybe he thought because we were going to therapy and things seemed better on the surface that everything was fine. I wish he had talked to me about it first, asked me if I was ready for that step instead of just assuming, because then we could have avoided this whole mess. I've also been thinking about Emily, wondering if they're still working together, if they still talk, if there's still something between them. And I hate that I have these thoughts, but I can't help it. Like, they just pop into my head, and I can't make them stop. Jake said it was just a one-time physical thing and it meant nothing. But how do I know that's true? How do I know they didn't have feelings for each other? How do I know it won't happen again? And even if I take him back, how do I know he won't cheat with someone else in the future? And even if it really was just once, does that make it better? Does that make it easier to forgive? I don't think it does. Because he still chose to betray me. He still chose to be with someone else. And that hurts no matter how many times it happened or what the circumstances were. I've been going to therapy by myself now. Not couples therapy, just individual therapy to work through my feelings. And my therapist has been helping me understand that it's okay to not have all the answers right now. It's okay to take time to figure out what I want, and I don't owe anyone an explanation or a decision on any particular timeline, which has been really helpful to hear. She's also been helping me work through the guilt I feel about saying no at the proposal. Because even though I know I did what was right for me, I still feel terrible about embarrassing Jake and causing a scene at my parents' party. And I keep replaying that moment in my head, wishing I had handled it differently, even though I don't know how else I could have handled it. Like, what was I supposed to do? Say yes and then break up with him later? That doesn't make sense either. The hardest part is that I miss him. I miss Jake so much. I miss coming home to him and cooking dinner together and watching TV on the couch and talking about our days. I miss having someone who knows me so well and who I can be completely myself with. And I miss the future we had planned together, the life we were building. Like, we had talked about getting married and having kids and buying a house. And now all of that feels like it's gone. But I also know that missing someone isn't enough. That love isn't enough if there's no trust. And I'm trying to be strong and do what's best for me, even though it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, every day, I have to remind myself that I deserve better than someone who would cheat on me. I posted about this situation on Reddit because I needed to get it off my chest and hear from people who aren't involved, who can give me an outside perspective. And the responses have been really mixed, which honestly hasn't made things easier. Some people say I did the right thing, that I should leave him and find someone who will treat me with respect and loyalty, and that saying no at the proposal was brave and honest. And those comments make me feel better about my decision. Other people say I should have handled it differently, that I should have said yes and then talked to him privately later, or that I should give him another chance since he seems genuinely sorry and willing to work on things. And those comments make me second-guess myself. A few people have said that I'm being too harsh, that one mistake shouldn't define a 4-year relationship, and that if I really love him, I should be able to forgive him. And those comments make me feel guilty, like maybe I'm throwing away something good over one mistake. Reading all these different opinions has been helpful in some ways, but also confusing, because ultimately I'm the only one who knows the full situation. I'm the only one who knows how I feel and what I can live with, and no one else can make this decision for me. Like, I can read 1,000 comments and get 1,000 different opinions, but at the end of the day, I have to live with whatever choice I make. I think part of me was hoping that posting online would give me a clear answer, that everyone would say the same thing and I would know what to do. But life isn't that simple, and relationships are complicated, and there's no right or wrong answer here. There's just what feels right for me, and I'm still trying to figure out what that is. So here I am, 3 weeks after the proposal, still staying at Rachel's apartment, still not sure what I'm going to do about Jake, still dealing with my family being upset with me, and still trying to figure out how to move forward. And it's exhausting. I know I need to make a decision soon. I can't stay in this limbo forever. I need to either commit to trying to work things out with Jake or end the relationship and start moving on. But I'm scared of both options. I'm scared of staying and getting hurt again. And I'm scared of leaving and regretting it for the rest of my life. Like, what if I walk away from the love of my life over one mistake? But also, what if I stay and he cheats again? And I waste more years of my life with someone who doesn't respect me? If I could give advice to anyone else in a similar situation, I would say trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And don't ignore red flags just because you love someone or because you've invested time in the relationship. Because I ignored my gut feeling for months and I wish I had listened to it sooner. I would also say that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to take time to figure out what you want, and you don't owe anyone a decision on their timeline. Like, my family wants me to make a decision now, but I need more time, and that's okay. And I would say that you deserve to be with someone who respects you and values you, and would never do anything to intentionally hurt you. And if someone betrays your trust, it's okay to walk away, even if it's hard, even if you still love them. Because love isn't enough if there's no trust and respect. I don't know how this story ends yet. I don't know if Jake and I will get back together or if we'll go our separate ways. I don't know if my family will eventually understand why I did what I did, or if they'll stay mad at me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully trust someone again after this, but I'm trying to take it one day at a time and be gentle with myself and remember that healing isn't linear, and it's okay to not be okay. Thank you for reading my story and for any advice or support you can offer. It really does help to know I'm not alone in this. And if you've been through something similar, I would love to hear how you handled it and what you decided to do. Because right now, I just feel really lost and confused, and I could use all the help I can get.